For our read aloud today, we left off with Rat and Mole leaving Badger's house. And today they are heading back. So Mole smells and remembers his old home. Not long after their adventure in the wildwood, the Rat and Mole found themselves plodding silently along a country lane. The rapid nightfall of mid-December had already descended upon them. The Mole was thinking of supper as he followed obediently behind the Rat, leaving the guidance in the darkness entirely to him. As for the Rat, he was walking a little way ahead, as was his habit. He walked steadily with his shoulders humped, his eyes fixed on the straight gray road in front of him. This is why he did not notice poor Mole when suddenly something soft and subtle, carried gently upon the cool night air, caused Mole to stop dead in his tracks. He didn't die, he just stopped. Saw some of your eyes get big. It was one of these mysterious sensory moments that suddenly reached Mole in the darkness. It made him tingle through and through with its familiar appeal, even though he could not clearly remember what it was. What do you think sensory means? That word sensory, what do you think it means? Right?
I think it means like just looking around trying to figure out stuff or like.
It was a sensory moment for him. What?
I think sensory means like I know this, but I don't remember what it is. Like he's confused.
When have we heard that word or part of that word before? Right, Zena?
What I think it means is like he remembers something.
Kind of, but they say it's a sensory moment. Yep.
It's kind of like something triggers in his brain, like senses or something.
It senses it. Our five senses, right? So a sensory moment is going to be something that has to do with your senses to figure something out. So your sense of sight, hearing, smell, all of the above. The five senses. The sensory moment is going to be filling your body with those. Make sure those notebooks are closed. Mole is using his senses in that moment to perceive something in the darkness. So he can't see, but all of a sudden he knows there's something. Having stopped suddenly in the pitch black of the night, his nose searched hither and thither in an effort to recapture the vague scent that had so strongly moved him. A moment, and he had caught it again. And with it, this time, came recollection in fullest flood. So all of a sudden, if you recall something, you're remembering something, right? Home! The essence of which had wafted through the air. Why, it must be quite close by home at that moment. His old home, the one he had forsaken and never sought again. That day when he first found the river, and now it was sending out its scouts and its messengers to capture him and bring him in. Since his escape on that bright morning, Mole had hardly given it a thought. So absorbed was he in his new life, with all the pleasures and surprises, captivating experiences. Now, with the rush of old memories, how clearly it stood up before him in the darkness. Shabby, indeed, and small and poorly furnished, and yet it was his. It was the home that he had made for himself, the home he had been so happy to get back to after his day's work, and the home had been happy with him. Evidently, his home had been happy with him too, evidently, and was missing him and wanted him back. The call was clear. The summons was plain. He must obey it instantly and go. Ratty, he called, full of joy and excitement. Come on, come back. Oh, come along, do, Mole, replied the Rat cheerfully, still plodding along. Please stop, Ratty. pleaded poor Mole, in anguish of heart. "You don't understand. It's my home, my old home. I've just come across the smell of it, and it's close by. I must go to it. I must. Oh, come back, Ratty. Please, please come back." The rat was by the time very far ahead, too far to hear clearly what the mole was calling. He was also too far away to catch the sharp note of painful appeal in his voice, and he was much taken up with the weather, for he too could smell something suspiciously like approaching snow. "Mole, we mustn't stop now, really," he called back. "We'll come for it tomorrow, whatever it is you found. But I daren't stop now. It's late, and the snow's coming on again. And I'm not sure of the way. So come on quick, there's a good fellow." And the rat pressed forward on his way without waiting for an answer. Poor Mole stood alone in the road, his heart torn, unassured, and a big sob gathering somewhere low down inside of him. But even under such a test as this, his loyalty to his friend stood firm. Never for a moment did Mole dream of abandoning Rat. Meanwhile, the wafts from his old home pleaded and whispered to him. He dared not tarry longer within his magic circle. With a wrench that tore his very heartstrings, he set his face down the road and followed submissively in the track of Rat, while faint smells reapproached him for his new friendship and his forgetfulness. Did he go to his home?
No.
Who did he follow? Why? Haley, why did he follow Rat?
He wants to be really loyal to Rat, and so he doesn't have to go back to his home.
Yeah, he wants to be loyal to his friend, right?
He wants them to see his house.
We kind of get a glimpse from this picture that Rat figures it out eventually, right? Rat comforts a despondent mole. The mole rested forlornly on a tree stump and tried to comfort himself, for he felt it surely coming. The sob he had fought with so long refused to be beaten. Up and up it forced its way to the air, and then another, till poor Mole at last gave up the struggle and cried freely and helplessly. Sometimes do you just need a good cry?
Mm-hmm.
The rat, astonished and dismayed by the violence of Mole's grief, did not dare to speak for a while. At last he said very quietly and sympathetically, "What is it, old fellow? Whatever can be the matter? Tell us your trouble, and let me see what I can do." Poor Mole found it difficult to get any words out between such heavy sobs. "I know it's a shabby, dingy little place," he sobbed forth at last brokenly. "Not like your cozy quarters, or Toad's beautiful hall, or Badger's great house. But it's my little home, and I was fond of it, and I went away and I forgot all about it. And then I smelt it suddenly on the road when I called you and you wouldn't listen, Rat, and everything came back to me with a rush, and I wanted it. Oh dear, and when you wouldn't turn back, Ratty, and I had to leave it, though I was smelling it all the time, I thought my heart would break. We might have just gone and had one look at it. Ratty, only one look. It was close by, but you wouldn't turn back, Ratty. You wouldn't turn back. Oh dear. Recollection brought fresh waves of sorrow, and sobs again took full charge of him, preventing any further speech. The rat stared straight in front of him, saying nothing, only patting Mole gently on the shoulder. And after a time he muttered gloomily, "I see it all now. What a pig I have been. Just a pig, a plain pig." He waited till Mole's sobs became gradually less stormy and more rhythmically. He waited till at last sniffs were frequent and sobs only intermittent. Then he rose from his seat and remarking carelessly, "Well, now we'd really better get going, old chap." And with that, Rat set off on the road they had just traveled upon. So he set off on the road they just traveled upon. Which direction do you think he's going? Where do you think he's headed, Joey? You think? "We're going to find that home of yours, old fellow," replied the Rat pleasantly. "So you had better come along, for it will take some finding, and we shall want your nose." In other words, Rat needs Mole's strong sense of smell in order to find that home. "Oh, come on, Ratty, do!" cried the Mole, getting up and hurrying after him. "It's no good, I tell you. It's too late. It's too dark, and the place is too far out, and the snow's coming, and I never meant to let you know that I was feeling what I was feeling about. It was all an accident, and a miserable, and to think of the riverbank, and your supper." "Hang riverbank, and supper too," said the Rat heartily. "I tell you, I'm going to find this place now, and if I stay out all night, so cheer up, old chap, and take my arm, and we'll soon be back there again." Still sniffling, pleading, and reluctant, Mole shuffled himself to be dragged back along the road by his companion. Is Rat trying to kind of maybe make up for his actions? Their moods have changed a little bit according to our picture, huh? When at last it seemed to the Rat that they must be nearing the part of the road where the Mole had been held up, he said, "Now, no more talking. Business. Your nose, and give your mind to it." They moved on in silence for some little time, when suddenly the Rat was conscious, though his arms that were linked in Mole's, of a sort faint of electric thrill that was passing down that animal's body. Instantly, he disengaged himself, fell back a pace, and waited. The signals were coming through. Mole stood a moment rigid, while his uplifted nose, quivering slightly, felt the air. Then a short, quick run after, a fault, a check, a try back, and then slowly, steadily, a confident advance. The Rat, much excited, kept close to his heels as the Mole, with something in the air of the sleepwalker, crossed a dry ditch, scrambled through the hedge, and nosed his way over a field. Suddenly, without giving warning, Mole divided, but the Rat was on the alert and promptly followed him down the tunnel to which his unerring nose had faithfully led him.